Hi, this is Diana Sescolini, and this is lecture video for my managerial accounting or my ACCTG 1B. This is going to cover chapter 5 or chapter 19, depending on what version you're using. So let's park myself up here. Let me grab my pointer really quick, guys. Let me get set up here. Okay, so this chapter is called Cost Volume Profit Analysis. So, or initials CVP. Excuse me. And what that basically means is when any one of these three things change, you look for the relationship to the other ones. If the costs go down, typically the profit goes up. If the volume goes up, the profit goes up. So it's about the relationship between these three components right here: cost, volume, and profit. And that's what we're going to analyze here. Well, we're going to talk about cost like it's an actual thing. We're going to talk about the behavior of the cost, how costs change when something else changes, or some related activity changes, what happens to my cost. So we're going to identify first the activities that will cause a cost to change. These are called activity bases or drivers. They drive the cost of something to change. Now, the range of activity over which changes in cost are of interest is called a relevant range. And I'm going to show you examples of relevant range and activity basis shortly. But all costs are broken down into three components: variable cost, fixed cost, or mixed cost. And we use acronyms a lot in this class. So VC is variable cost, FC, and then mixed cost. So let's look at these three types of cost, and let's take a look at how they affect our CVP analysis. First one we're going to look at is variable cost. So here's what you can know about variable cost. Variable cost is any cost that will change when an activity base changes, and it's based upon the proportion of the change of the activity base. Typically, a variable cost is something that is directly related to the product. Okay, so activity basis for variable cost could be how many units produced, how much direct material used, how much direct labor. These are basically variable costs because any one of these three things can change, which will then change my actual cost. So let me give you an example of a variable cost. So here we're making, Jason Company is making stereo systems, and there's a part I need, but right now I buy it from my other suppliers for $10 for each unit, and then I assemble it into what I need it for me. So the direct materials cost for the relevant range. So we're going to look at the quantities of units produced as the relevant range. I'm going to look at what happens at 5,000 units, what happens at 30,000 units. So it doesn't make a difference which quantity level or relevant range I buy at, it's still $10. So here's what happens. Here's my relevant range, my units. The cost per unit is $10. So what happens is the direct material cost increases based upon the change of the activity base. So variable costs have these two characteristics. Cost per unit remains the same regardless of changes in activity basis. So this $10 stayed the same. Cost per unit stays the same regardless the change in my relevant range. However, total cost, which is over here, changes in proportion to the changes in the activity base. So my total cost increases when my relevant range increases also. So that's how you know it's a variable cost. These are the characteristics, these are the two important things you need to understand. So if this was a economics class, here's a wonderful graph for you to look at. This is just variable cost. So when total direct materials cost goes up, my units produced go up the same amount. But this one over here measures when my variable cost stays the same, the total cost stays all the same here. So here is a great little chart. I suggest you actually keep these, okay? So this is the different types of businesses. These are the costs. These are the activity basis. So here's a great example. University. The cost for that would be the salary salary for the instructor, and the activity base would be the number of classes. So when the number of classes goes up, the cost per class may be the same, but their salaries go up. So this is just a nice little example of how you can apply the variable cost with an activity base. Okay, so let's move to, actually, you know what? Let's stop here. The next video will be mixed cost. I like to keep my videos 5 minutes or shorter, and this is a little bit over.